could you each introduce yourselves and explain who you play in Avatar: The Way of Water?
I am Jack Champion. I play Spider, and Spider, he was born at Hell's Gate, but orphaned there when all the humans evacuated, and he grew up like with the Na'vi, but still kind of a stray cat, but considers himself one of the Na'vi people and kind of sort of a part of the Sully family.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what I can say.
I am Trinity Bliss. I play Neytiri. Everyone calls her Took. She's the youngest of the Sullys, and she has this huge heart. She's very, very curious. Her eyes are just always wide open and observing everything around her, and she's small but absolutely mighty.
Mighty!
Mighty!
Exactly.
Great. And can you explain how you came to audition for the film? And what do you remember about meeting Jim Cameron for the first time? Do you want to go first?
Yes. Well, I first got the audition notice late February 2017, and I actually showed up to the audition office a whole week early. I guess that just shows how excited we were and excited I was. And yeah, I remember Margie, our incredible casting director, was kind enough to see me, and I saw her a couple times after that, and then I finally met Jim. And I guess the rest is history. It just, some days I still wake up and wonder if I imagined it all, because, yeah, mind is blown, and, yeah.
Could you explain how you came to audition for the film and what you remember about meeting Jim Cameron for the first time?
So I think it was like a wide open call, you know, on Cast It and through other platforms, and I remember I just submitted myself, and I did a couple self-tapes because, you know, I'm from the middle of nowhere, and then I met with Margie, the casting director, over Skype a few times, and then finally I got the call to go to LA for a screen test, and I remember meeting Jim for the first time. I remember waiting in like this dark, like, you know, like a dark room, you know, it was like a few cameras, camera guys, and everyone was like, "Oh, Jim's coming." And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And I remember seeing him walking through the door, and he's just like, "I'm Jim. Yeah, nice to meet you." And he's just like, I remember thinking, I'm shaking hands with a guy that has been
Down to the Mariana Trench.
to the Mariana Trench. And I remember seeing he's wearing a Rolex, and I was like, this dude, like, I'm in the big leagues now.
And remember when we go up to Jim's office, we can kind of see down and look down on the volume?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I remember seeing that and just being filled with wonder, and
yeah,
turns
that's
out
actually a good
that's
point.
where we filmed. Yeah.
And yeah, like all the storyboards of like movies, or from Avatar 2 to all of them, and it was so cool.
Yeah.
Really magical.
And what initially drew each of you to acting? What's that?
I was always really energetic, and I watched Disney Channel as a kid, and once I figured out that was a job that I could do, I was like, well, hell yeah, that, you know, beats every other job in my opinion, because I was never competitive, and growing up in a town where sports was like the main thing, I just was not, you know, so, and also acting was like one of the few things I really felt driven about, so I just pursued it with the help of my mom driving me to like audition 6 hours away, or, you know, filming stuff, so yeah, my mom helped out a lot.
Yeah.
So
I guess for me, I've just always loved performing, and I've always loved performing and been drawn to the performance arts, and yeah, it's funny because both my parents work for biotech companies, and I think my dad was probably ready for me to become an Olympian skater, or my mom for me to become a lawyer or a doctor or something. And then I've just always been drawn to the performing arts and always wanted to take any chance to perform for people, whether they'd be listening or not. And yeah, I'm just so fortunate that I have parents supporting me through this, and although I do have to do 30 minutes math every day. That's the promise.
We're in like calculus now. She's
no,
always been insanely
still
smart.
A little bit, yeah.
Insanely.
No.
Oh my gosh,
Not
you were
at all.
doing my level
Not
of
at
math
all.
when I was in 7th grade,
Not
and you were
at
what,
all.
like 3rd grade? It's insane.
No. But yeah, I'm so glad that I get to do this and get to meet people like Jack.
I'm lucky to meet the future CEO of probably
No.
Amazon or something. I don't know.
I'm so honored. Thank you.
Jack, what can you tell us about Spider and his role in the story?
He's a human, and he is very much like on the outskirts of the Sully family. And once the humans come and basically infiltrate the Sully family, he gets captured, and that erupts a whole, catapults a whole thing of array of problems, and he is kind of tied to all of those. And he also just wants to get back to his kind of sort of family. And also kind of feels ways about his maybe kind of sort of father. So it's like family is kind of a touchy subject for him. But yeah.
So to start, could each of you introduce yourselves and explain your characters in Avatar: Way of Water?
I'm Bailey Bass, and I play Soraya, who is part of the Mekaina clan, the new clan introduced in Avatar: The Way of Water. She's super kind, a strong freediver, and has a big heart.
I'm Jamie Flatters. I play Nateam. He's the eldest son of Jake and Neytiri. He's the character who takes on the most like sort of moral compass and high virtue. Show your Lego.
Oh.
And he meets this character along the way.
The Soraya.
Thank you.
Could each of you tell me how you auditioned for the film and what you remember about meeting James Cameron for the first time?
Oh, so my brain works in a very interesting way. Someone can be like, this person won an award and they won it for this movie, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, this person won this award for the first time because of this movie. Like, my brain doesn't connect things. So I walk into the casting office in LA when we're already deep into the audition process, and I see Titanic poster, Terminator poster, and I'm like, Mama, James Cameron did all these movies, because my brain did not connect all the dots. And she's like, yes, Bailey. And when I met him, I was just like, wow, this person has accomplished so much. But because I necessarily didn't grow up with those movies, I had a disconnect, which gave me confidence. It was just like talking to any other person.
Yeah, the fact that man can have the passion and drive to gun for one film as his focal point for about 13 years is extremely impressive. That sort of commitment to the art form, I think, is extraordinary and goes even beyond the term of director. It's more than that. The French call it like realizer, and
Well, he's a visionary.
That translation is nice because, to allow such a community of people, the fact that the whole world's going to see a world like this, to be a world creator is few and far between.
Okay, amazing. And where were you both when you found out you'd gotten these parts?
I was at a modeling job when I found out I got the role.
What were you modeling for?
It's a store called Burlington,
Oh, nice.
and I was in New Jersey with not good cell reception, and my mom's like, out of all days, this will be the day they get the call. And that is the day we got the call. I come out of the set looking for my mama, and I see her in the hallway, and she comes out, and she's like, you got it. And I'm like, what? And then we kind of meet in this hallway and just hug and cry, and just, it was a very beautiful, happy moment that I actually remember vividly.
Yeah, that's sort of the best part, isn't it? Being able to.
You were at home.
Sorry, yes. Thank you for getting us back on track. I was at home. My agent was calling, knew what call it was for, decided not to pick up because I needed to talk to myself first and be like, it's cool if you don't get this, life goes on, you're all good. And got it. And my older brother was upstairs playing like World of Warcraft or like Skyrim or something, and I was like, yeah, bro, I got this. I got Avatar. And he was like, oh, bro, that's kind of cool still. I was like, yeah, kind of cool. And we were like, ah. He went, ah. And we were like, yeah.
Playing it down modestly. What initially drew each of you to acting?
I knew from ever that I wanted to be an actor. I have been modeling since I was 2.5, so I've been in the entertainment industry surrounded by cameras and adults since I was very young. And since preschool, if someone asked me, what would you want to be when you grow up, an actor was always the constant answer.
I share that sentiment because, I don't remember wanting to be an actor. It was always there and like formulated through, playing as a child, playing like weird fantasy games in the playground at school and still wanting to be.
When did you
other
stop
than
playing
yourself.
fantasy games?
Well, that's the argument, because it just shifted into weirder realms of just talking to yourself out loud.
And I wonder if that's why we love doing such massive things like this, because we love playtime and creativity and being able to imagine.
Maybe we're getting too sentimental
Yeah,
with
sorry.
Disney.
Yeah, Disney. Okay.
But this
No,
comedian, this
never
comedian
too
died
sentimental.
called.
Oh
Norm
no, that
Macdonald,
is.
And he always used to do this thing. Is like the only victory you have over like mundane experience is to play with it, and that's where courage comes in. Sorry, we should go.
Jamie, what can you tell us about Neytiri and his role in the family? And how would you describe his relationships with his siblings and his parents?
Neytiri is the eldest son, so he takes on a moral responsibility of wanting to try and protect his siblings the way his parents would, and there's a lot of them, and they have a wide willingness to explore, so they need help containing such energies of wandering into the wilderness. Yeah, it's a pleasure of a part to play. The dynamics are interesting.
Lovely. And then Bailey, what can you tell us about Sadea and her relationship with her brothers and parents?
Sadea is the youngest. Well, Renal's pregnant, so I guess she becomes the middle child of the Metkaina, I guess, royal family, for lack of a better metaphor. And she is daughter to Tonawari and Renal. She has a very big heart and is extremely kind. Her and her brother Aunung they have different ideas of life, so their dynamic changes, but overall the family center, and I think all of the Na'vi center is taking care of one another.
All right, lovely. And then just one last question. What was it like working amongst such experienced actors, and did you have any questions for them? And also, what did you learn working aside them?
I think it was very. I'm very grateful to have acted opposite such talented and dedicated actors that were so giving to their craft and giving to their other actors. You know, we're kids. They could have easily given their all in a portion of the scene that was important for them and then just slacked off, barely memorized their lines, and just gave whatever else to us, but they never did that. It was an immersive experience on set because of their performances and their dedication, and I'm very grateful to have had that experience.
Okay. At what point did you and Jim first discuss the idea of your playing Renal in The Way of Water and the subsequent Avatar sequels?
So Jim first mentioned the possibility to me quite a long time ago. It was either 2014 or 2015. We had to attend an event together, and the night before we spoke on the phone, and we chat, and at the end he said, and at some point we have to get you big and blue. And I thought, God, that sounds great. So he sort of planted the seed then. And in 2017, at the end of 2017, was when he did actually call and say, I really seriously do want to talk to you about playing this part of Renal. And he told me about her, and then I was sent the script. And of course, didn't hesitate to be a part of it. I was very excited.
How did he initially describe the character, and what most intrigued you about this role?
He described her as the female warrior goddess leader of the Metkaina clan. And he said that she was ferociously protective of her family, that she would stop at nothing to take care of them. And I was immediately sucked in. It sounded amazing to me.
And what can you tell us, I'm probably going to say this wrong, about the Metkaina clan? Renal's role within the clan itself. Who are they? How are they different? And what's important about their culture?
The Metkaina are a slightly different physical form of Na'vi. They live on and in the water. They respect the water. They also live with nature. So life underwater, the animals are also part of their family and their culture. Physically, they are taller. They're a slightly paler shade of blue. They have a sort of an extra piece on their forearm, which almost resembles a fin for power in the water. Their tail is thicker for thrashing through the water at speed. Renal is the female leader alongside Tonawari, her husband, but really it is Renal who makes the decisions, calls the shots, which is fantastic.
How would you characterise Renal's attitudes towards the Scully family initially, and how does her perspective then evolve over time?
So Renal really does see Jake and Neytiri and their children as intruders. Physically, she frowns on them. She thinks that they look physically incapable of survival within their culture. She doesn't believe that they will be able to adapt to the Metcaina way of life, and she's extremely resistant to welcoming them in. But it's not because she isn't kind-hearted or compassionate. It's because she is afraid of threat, and she's afraid of change. And what she has done to establish her village, her people, her family, her clan, that's her own doing. It's her life's work. It's the reason for everything that she is. And so, yes, initially she sees them as a huge threat.
How did you go about preparing for the role? Were you able to see an early concept art of what she would look like?
So yes, I saw a lot of early concept art, which was enormously helpful to get an idea of her physical self. She's also pregnant, the character. So to see what that would look like and physically how that would change how I moved as a Na'vi. Obviously, I've been a pregnant woman 3 times, so I know exactly what that's like. But the Na'vi people are, they are very, very, very strong physically and extraordinarily agile. Kate Winslet is not so agile. So to see that artwork was enormously helpful because it meant I just had a guide in terms of how to hold myself and how to position my shoulders, my head, my hips, my legs. And I was really excited to see how I would truly morph into that character. And I still haven't seen the film, so I'm enormously excited to see how it's come together.
Were you excited by the opportunity to learn to dive, and did it come naturally for you?
I was really excited to learn how to free dive. It's something that I have always been fascinated by and wanted to do, but could never imagine how it would be possible for me. How on earth does a person learn that? I wouldn't have had a clue how to begin. I loved it. I was trained. I spent 3 weeks really intensely working every single day with Kurt Krock, who was our instructor. And it did come quite naturally to me. I'm comfortable in the water. I love the water. And I felt very at ease with it. I was never afraid of it. And yeah, eventually I got to a point where I was just determined to be very, very good at it. And which I was, which was completely amazing.
What did you make of the performance capture stage, and how did it feel to be directed by Jim again after so many years?
The performance capture stage is fascinating. I mean, in many ways, it's extremely simple. It almost feels like acting in some kind of a sports hall or something. It's a huge flat area with lots of taped out marks on the floor that denote rooms and doorways and spaces and where the building stops and the sea begins, the water begins. So it's lots and lots of fakery and make-believe. But it means that as actors, actually, you have to concentrate a lot because the cameras capture everything. The helmet cam picks up every single one of your facial features, your muscles. Every tiny, tiny movement is seen and utilized. So actually, it's a very pure form of acting, I found. You can't hide behind anything. And working with Jim again was just fantastic. I mean, the guy is a complete genius, and this is very much his baby. And it's just remarkable. How does he do it? It was wonderful to be a part of it.
All right. So, what sets New Zealand apart from filmmaking in other countries you've worked in? Crew, skills, people, lifestyle, ease of work, etc.
New Zealand is a terrific place to make films because of, first of all, because of weather, because of the amazing place that Peter Jackson has created there. It's you feel very much that it is. I don't know if it's a cottage industry there, although that sounds a little pejorative. I don't mean it that way. It's just so local. Everything there is so available, and so it seems somehow more scaled, kind of much more to humans than various places can be. I remember back in the old days, you go on the Universal lot, and the first thing you do is get lost. New Zealand is it's a great place. I'll always obviously associate it with the Lord of the Rings films, which meant so much, I think, to filmmaking. And in some ways, it was the Lord of the Rings that ushered Avatar, the possibilities of Avatar, because of the work that Andy Serkis did as Gollum. So I'll always associate it with that, and it's a beautiful environment over there. You're far away, you have nothing to do except make the movie, yeah.
That's nice. Can you describe what it's like working in New Zealand and working with the New Zealand crew?
Yeah. Well, the Kiwis they're terrific people as a group. I get along very well with them. They're proud, they're competent. They're diligent, they show up on time, they get the work done. They're very proud of their own industry there as well, and of their heritage too. And so you get there's a lot of respect. You need to respect them, and they respect you right back. And they're low key. They're not nearly as a people, and I don't mean to profile people as a people, but they're not as kind of blatantly aggressive, I think, as perhaps we are as Americans. So when you get there, you can kind of lighten up just a little bit, it seems to me.
Okay, so at what point did you and Jim first discuss the idea of your returning to play an important role in The Way of Water and the subsequent Avatar sequels, and were you surprised to be back from the dead?
I was alerted to the fact that my character would be coming back as early as 2007, even while we were making the original Avatar. If I had not perhaps accomplished the role, he might have rethought that. But the truth of the matter was, I think that Quaritch came out very well, and we enjoyed working together, and more importantly, he enjoyed working with me, I suppose. And so I was asked to return, and I think the main thing is that he really liked the character. He liked where the character had been and where the character could go. And I remember having a terrific dinner with him in probably 2010, where he started to kind of outlay the foundations of where the character might go, the fact that he would be undergoing a change, obviously, but he would still be very much, and Jim was always adamant about this, he's not going to be, he's not going to become a tree hugger, this guy. He's still going to be, fundamentally Quaritch, because that's who we love to hate, or whatever, So, and then the evolution of the role, it happened through the writing, and then as it was written, then through the acting of it, and through the kind of the back and forth on the set, where we would, I think, constantly tweak and massage and change things that made sense and advanced the cause of both the story and the character.
How is this iteration of Quaritch different from the man we met in Avatar? Could you explain the idea of recombinant?
Mm-hmm.
And what can you tell us about Quaritch's relationship with the RDA? What about his relationship with the character of Spider?
Mm-hmm. There's a number of things in there. Quaritch is Quaritch. The new Quaritch, the reconstituted Quaritch, or not resurrected, he's really reconstituted. It is a new Quaritch, but there's a lot of the old Quaritch in him. There's still got the fire, he's still got the aggression, he's still got the singular vision that Quaritch had. But that has now been, I wouldn't say leavened, but it's combined in a way with this, with the way of Awa, with the way of water, with Pandora has gotten into his bloodstream. And that's going to have all kinds of repercussions on how he behaves, how he moves, how he thinks, how he feels, what does it do to his spirit. So those are all issues that I'm not going to answer because the answers are in the movie, some of them, and they're questions that will continue to be asked and answered as this saga, continues to progress. I think that his relationship with RDA is interesting. I think it's pretty cut and dried, in fact. I think that he was a contract player, as it were, for RDA. There came a time when he was mustered out of the military. He goes into kind of private practice, as it were, and his skill set is something that RDA can use. And so he's hired for a price, and he does his job. And he does his job really, really well until he doesn't. But they've got an investment in him, and they consider him, they do the math, RDA. And he knows that. He knows they don't care about him. He doesn't care about them. It's a deal. But as the saga progresses, I think his relationship to RDA becomes more problematic, frankly. Yeah. And his relationship with Spider, I won't say too much about that at this point, other than there's a history there, and that it's something that he does not see coming at all. And it's something that I think affects him in ways that he would prefer not to be affected until he maybe kind of, gives into it at some point. Yeah, it's so much easier not to feel.
Yeah. In what way does Quaritch's return pose a real threat to Jake, Sully, and his family? And what is the dynamic between those two characters?
Well, it poses this threat. Quaritch is going to destroy Jake Sully and his family. That's the threat in a nutshell. And the relationship between he and Jake is bad. It's Quaritch gave Jake every opportunity. He made it possible for Jake to redefine his purpose in life, to find a purpose in life when Jake had none. And essentially, Jake spat in his face and betrayed him. And that's unforgivable to Quaritch.
One more. Did you approach the character differently this time around? And if so, in what ways? What did you do to prepare to play Quaritch once more?
There's always the physical preparation is always to me, it's a go-to thing with Quaritch, because he's nothing if not Strack. He keeps himself the way he wants to keep. He keeps himself the way he wants to be seen, which is in shape to lead, because he's always going to be leading from the front. Quaritch likes to be visible. So the preparation was very physical, of course. And then there's a lot of talking about the character, but in the end, the talk is just the talk. It's all about, you can talk and talk and talk and talk, but then you got to get on, you get on the stage and you start to explore. You start to kind of run your fingers through the dirt of the scene and try and stir things up. And that's where you really find the character. You can make all the plans in the world. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this with the character. It don't really work that way. You just get yourself in shape. Get yourself prepared for discoveries to happen and for surprises to occur, so you can kind of deal with them, and that's how life happens on the screen.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for time.
You got it.
We're good to go.
So, Sigourney, at what point did you and Jim first discuss the idea of you playing an important role in The Way of Water and the subsequent Avatar sequels?
So, in 2010, Jim and I had lunch in Los Angeles, in part to discuss how one might create a character of a girl who is a young girl, who had some sort of relationship with Grace Augustine, who I played in the first one. And it was clear that she was very comfortable in the forest, felt more at home there than she did with, any kind of people's community. Was sort of a wild child. I didn't know anything about the boy character that Jim would create later, the human boy that becomes her best friend. But that is a wonderful addition. I was thrilled, excited, and somewhat terrified by the prospect.
How did he initially describe the character of Kiri, and what most intrigued you about the role?
I think that he described her, well, we talked about these ideas that became more rounded out, but I think that, she doesn't know her true identity. Nobody seems to, and that is a very unsettling aspect of her life. She's adopted, so that's another difficult part. So she's one of those people who's very secure in certain ways and kind of lost in other ways, which I think is true of a lot of people's adolescence. So I think that there's a great deal of honesty in that, and I'm just so impressed that Jim can write a character like Kiri who's so special, so gentle, and also so ferocious when she has to be.
Did you have any trepidation around the idea of playing a 14-year-old girl, and how did you prepare for something like that?
Well, of course, I felt he was entrusting me with a huge responsibility, and that he might decide he was crazy. But I knew I didn't want to play a 14-year-old. I wanted to be a 14-year-old, and I wanted to be Kiri, a specific 14-year-old. And for that, I had to sort of unearth my 14-year-old and start to weave them together. And I found, the voice from hanging out at some classes in a high school in New York. And so luckily I had the time, because we kept being postponed, that I could sort of build. And so I think there was a lot I could identify with, the love of nature and love of creatures. And, inadvertently I became that comfortable in the water, even though, what I remember in the water growing up was there were always these horseshoe crabs, which are like these really primitive looking things that were always like scuttling along. So there are more beautiful things in the water in Pandora, of course.
How would you characterize Kiri's relationship to the other children in the story?
Well, I think Jim's family, he had several children who were around these ages, and he wanted to bring their real reality of, the put downs and the sarcasm and all of that in our world of the children. And so I think he wrote them really beautifully. So you see us giving each other grief, but at the same time you see that we'll do anything for each other. And that's what a family is.
How did you find the experience of working with the younger cast? And was there a lot of mentoring happening on set?
Well, I loved working with the kids, and I was always grateful to them because they immediately accepted me as a 14-year-old. I think they all got a medal for that. And I was particularly close to Trinity, who played my little sister, because Kiri and Took are very close. And then, Jack Champion plays Spider, who's my best friend. But I would never directly mentor anyone. I think that it was, if I mentor at all, because I've been in the business for so long, I come from the theater, so I was inadvertently mentored to be on time, to be prepared, to know my lines, to take it very seriously, still have fun, all those things. And so in that sense, I think I was a very stabilizing influence to be in that group. All the kids did great, and they're each such individuals, and they all have very strong parents. So I didn't ever feel, I think probably I'll continue to be good friends with Trinity, and I think we will stay in touch, and if she has any questions that I can be helpful with, I'll certainly, share with her.
With Neytiri, Kiri, and Ronald, we're seeing more compelling female characters in the Avatar universe. Could you speak to the way Jim foregrounds strong women in his storytelling?
I think Jim loves women, thinks of women as very strong. I mean, he created the, more extended Ripley, But I think Ronald is a very powerful character. A very upfront character who doesn't want us there. Neytiri is strong because she's so vulnerable and yet does what she needs to do. And I think that he was delighted to add more women characters. He's so good at creating characters. He must somehow have all these other kinds of women in his life. He's very close to his mother and his family, and his family as a father, and I think he put all those different colors in these relationships for real.
What training did you undergo to perform the underwater performance capture, and what was that experience like acting underwater?
Well, one of the things you noticed when you read the script was that a good 75% of it seemed to be underwater. And luckily, Jim never asks you to do something that he doesn't make sure you can be ready for. So he hired an extraordinary teacher, Kurt Crack, to sort of teach us the elements of free diving, how to hold our breath, how to work underwater so that our faces were relaxed and it looked like our element. And so, it took us a number of months, a year really, to get to the point where we could shoot. And we needed that time. And when I watch the movie, I can see that we are comfortable underwater. It is our element. So Jim's direction worked,
Perfect. How would you describe your on-set relationship with Jim at this point, given that you've known each other for so long and have worked together often?
It's very playful. We tease each other. And he had this desk on the side that was called Jim's desk, and it was covered with a piece of paper, and it said Jim's desk on it, only his stuff. And you're often over there talking to Jim right by the screen where you can sort of see a roughed out version of what's going on. And I put my coffee cup down one day and he said, "This is my desk." And I said, "You know what? You have all this space. I'm going to just take a corner for myself." And I took a crayon and I made a kind of square. And I said, "This is my space. And if I have a cup, I can put it down on this space." So I think we give as good as we get.
What sets New Zealand, the country, apart from other filmmaking locations?
Well, it's such an extraordinarily beautiful country. I did all my performance capture on an empty set in Manhattan Beach. So I only went to New Zealand we shot a little bit of 4 there that I was in. And so I think what's great is it has a really good crews. a whole film community, a filmmaking community that's very hardworking and lovely, lovely scenery for Lord of the Rings and all these different hobbity things. But I don't think we've ever taken advantage of it because, of course, Pandora is all done at Weta Digital, and it's a make-believe world. So we're probably the only film that's gone to New Zealand without wanting to shoot the mountains and the forests and the oceans.
And another one about New Zealand. Can you describe what it's like working in New Zealand and working with the New Zealand crew? Well,
I loved working in New Zealand. The people are great. They're very hardy people. They sort of just really do their jobs in sometimes extremely onerous conditions. You know, I met a lot of the stunt guys who played the dwarves and various Lord of the Rings, and they were always having to be flown by helicopter from one mountaintop to another, wearing these huge dwarf suits, you know, and beards and wigs and fake noses and everything. And they're just such a great group of people. They're so funny. You know, they don't take it too seriously, but they work hard.
And the last one, amid all the grand spectacle of The Way of Water, the central core of the story is really centered around family. Was that something that resonated with you personally?
Well, I think family resonates for everyone, whether you're close to your family or not close to your family. As soon as the movie starts, you are just brought into that family. You become part of the family for the whole 2+ hours, and this emotional story is the family story. And he's written it. Jim Cameron has written it so beautifully. Every character is so well defined and so well played. I think it's got an amazing cast, and to me, that's why. The main reason why the movie works so well. It's also dazzling and seamless in the way it's executed, but you're there because you love this family, and you go with them on these adventures, some of which they don't really want. But I think that you feel for them and you want to root for them.
At what point did you and Jim first discuss his ideas for The Way of Water and the subsequent Avatar sequels? And were you excited about the idea of returning to play Jake Sully and Neytiri once more?
I think that when we were shooting the first Avatar, the conversations were more hopeful. If we do good, this is what I would probably do for the sequels, but nothing was ever solid until 2013 when he reached out and he said, fellas, I have begun writing the sequels. This is gonna happen. Wait for my call, stay tuned. And then in 2015, separate calls, he had us come in and walked us through the journey of what he was planning to do with Avatar 2, learning that it was also going to be an Avatar 3. And then as we were walking out, in reality, it's 5 movies. Yeah. It's a saga. And we're like...
Yeah. At that time, it was just a story. It was just a cool story that he had evolved. It wasn't split into movies. It was just this story, yeah.
Awesome. So how has the passing of time informed your approaches to the characters? Specifically, how has the fact that you now have your own children influenced how you play the role?
I think you get inspired by your children. You're not, say, using them, but the feelings that you get as a parent of being protective,
of being afraid,
being fearful, that comes into play. And I think Jim tapped into that because he's a parent too. So it's kind of a personal journey for him when he wrote it. And I think that kind of comes across in how Jake and Neytiri are approaching the world. You know, they're reckless warriors, but now they have a responsibility bigger than them.
Yeah. I just how relatable they are as parents. We needed that. We needed to see a father just do anything and everything to keep his family safe, and a mother that is doing the same thing, and they're trying to be each other's voices of reason as they're battling their fears. And when do you do the right thing, and when do you go against each other because you disagree in the whole process of parenting? Everything about the Sullys is absolutely relatable and so needed right now.
So was it challenging to find the characters after so much time away from playing them, or did they come right back to you like an old friend?
You know, the parts of her came back, and then I was reminded that I was older, that I couldn't do certain things that Neytiri could do. And then other parts were completely unrelatable, you know, and then I had to acquire a brand new set of skills. But here's the thing, like Neytiri's journey and my journey in my personal life have been very parallel in the fact that I knew the sensation of fearlessness and anger, you know, when you're younger. And then as a mother, I was experiencing that sensation, and it was very new, of being paralyzed by fear and having that incompetence, that sensation of incompetence, like irritate you, frustrate you. That's what Neytiri was going through. So I just did not want to get in the way of that. And it's funny because Jim really challenged me. I mean, I feel like Jim broke me in a way, because he was like, you can't, I won't let you get in her way. She has a journey and you just have to trust the process. But I think it was my inability to admit, to feel, to sit in that level of discomfort, because it was so relatable in my personal life. So I am so in love of how different Avatar: The Way of Water was, that it felt like a brand new experience, you know, for me, that I learned and I grew so much out of, you know?
It's too hard for me to answer.
So what was it like to reunite with the actors from the first film? Probably each other in particular. And what are you both like as scene partners? Do you kind of approach the work in a similar way?
I think we all approach the work differently. I think that's the great thing about a troupe of actors, especially ones that know each other very well. You allow each other to have their own process. And the great thing about Jim as a leader is he understands that too. He's not trying to imprint his way of directing onto you. He will, you know, listen to Zoe and take on her style and her approach, and same with me. And then especially with the new people coming in who are new to the, you know, the way that we create these movies. So we've, you know, from Kate down to Trinity, you know, they've, you know, this is Trinity's first film, so she's, you know, completely different and completely raw to all of us. But his approach as a leader is genuine and respectful, and it's, you know, that kind of respect leads to a very nice film set.
It's true.
Awesome. So what is the threat that ultimately forces the Sully family down this new path towards meeting the Metkayina clan? Apologies for that.
The Metkayina clan.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Well,
okay.
it's the threat of war again makes this family become refugees almost. Obviously, Neytiri doesn't want to leave her homeland.
Oh my God.
She doesn't want to become, quite literally, the fish out of water. But at the same time, they don't want to see their sons emulate their father and their mother and go into battle and potentially die. So, you know, Jake in a weird way has to become a pacifist and uproot everything that his wife knows and believes in and represents, and take them, you know, far away out of safety.
Whereas she sees it as like, we're cowards. How do we walk away from this? So they're really
coming at it from two different points of view.
Yes.
Yeah, of how to seek sanctuary for their family and why.
Final question: how would you describe your on-set rapport with Jim?
I love
Where
it.
to begin, man?
Where do we begin?
You know?
It's multi-dimensional. It is selfless, never personal. And when it is personal, it is absolutely safe, you know? But he does challenge you. He will challenge you the same way he will accept your challenge. And as long as there is a great level of respect, what wouldn't we do for the common goal of making art, of telling a great story? I only feel inspired. I only feel repurposed working with someone like Jim and his crew.
I love him. He's fearless, and he makes me fearless. And he's always surprising. You know, he's in the trench with you, which is what you want.
Yes, he is.